Welcome, Whiskey Wanderers, to In the Realm of Whiskies, Episode 3. Today we're going to be comparing two very interesting scotches. They actually are both Glenmorangie Quinta Rubans. We're doing this because recently Glenmorangie came up with a new version of this that is a 14-year-old, as before it was a 12-year-old scotch for many, many years. This has significance for me because this is one of the first whiskeys I bought in Europe when I went overseas as a college student, and I saw this Glenmorangie. It was finished in portwood, and at that time there was not very common, maybe one of the very first ones to be finished in portwood. In fact, there were other ones finished in sherry like Aberlour, like Glenfarclas, and those were quite well known, but I just never seen one in port, and I really loved it. And a few years later it was available in the United States, and I think in the mid-2000s, and it was named Quinta Ruban, named after Quinta is a city where a port is being made in Portugal. Ruban is actually ruby, so it's the ruby port of Quinta. So this is very interesting because it's non-chill filtered, one of the first ones to say that, and one of the mass-produced scotches. And this is a port cask finish, Highland whiskey, and 46%, so a little higher than I remember. I believe it was only 40 or 43 when I got it in Europe. So when this came out, I was quite happy to have this. But just this last year, or a year or two ago, they came out with the Quinta Ruban 14-year-old. We can see the label is quite a revamp in a different color. So we're going to be reviewing both of these for you because the 12-year-old Quinta Ruban is no longer being made. So I thought I'd review these two while I'm still able to have one to enjoy it and compare and see what the difference is. So shall we start? Let's start with the 12-year-old. You can see the color. It's a little darker, a slightly red tinge to it. Very pleasant, beautiful color. It's quite viscous. Oh, you can smell the caramel, a little creme brulee, a little nut. It's a nuttiness to it in the nose, as well as the honey creme brulee, a little dark sweetness. Let's taste. Beautiful heather notes, light honey. You definitely notice the port, the wine, the sweetness of dark fruit, a little black currant, kind of blackberry, like a dark raisin. Just very, very delightful. Let's give it another taste. Yes, very, very good. The honeyness come out a little bit more. You can feel the viscous, and the mouthfeel is quite nice. I think this is partly due to the non-chill filtering of this spirit, which gives it a little thicker mouthfeel. When you have regular Glenmorangie, I can feel a little thin, but I've always enjoyed the Quinta Ruban, the portwood, and I've been a fan. I'm a little disappointed that this one's going away, the 12-year-old. But the finish is quite warm, a little on the light side, medium long. You can definitely taste the oak, the wood, slight woodiness to the port. Just a lot of good complexity for a 12-year-old Highland single malt. Quite delicious. I would recommend this very, very much so. If you can find one still, they used to be around $45, which is quite good, but now it's a little more difficult to find. But if you can find one, take one while you can. So the second one we're going to try is the Glenmorangie 14 years. So this one is still 46% finished in ruby port casks, and let me see. But it does no longer say non-chill filtered. So that's kind of interesting. So there's a little change in this. Shall we give it a try? You can notice the color. If I combine the two, this is definitely, the 14-year-old is definitely a tiny bit, a tinge darker, a little tinge redder, browner. Let's give it a shot here. All right, the 14-year-old. Definitely, the caramel is absent on this. There's a light caramel, a hint of brown sugar, kind of a cherry brown sugar, light brown sugar nose, and I don't really notice the port on the nose much, but it's definitely not as caramel as the 12-year-old is. Let's give it a taste. Oh, it's much lighter. It's very mellow for a 14-year-old. It has some age, you can tell, but the complexity is somehow missing to me. It's a little slightly bitter. You taste the port, but there's a slight bitterness to it. It's more like a black currant kind of feel. I would say it's the port influence of this whiskey is very subdued, even though it has 14 years. Supposedly, both of these scotches are aged 10 years American oak, which is probably bourbon finish, and 2 years in port pipes for the 12-year, and 4 years in port pipes for the 14-year. So this one actually has a lot more years in the port pipe. But my guess is the difference is they probably can't get the same port pipes anymore, so they had to change their aging to make it a little longer, age of 4 more years instead of 2 more years, and to get a similar kind of spirit. But these two scotches are actually not the same at all, even though they bear the same name. 14 years. Yes. There's a little black currant, a little spicy, dark fruit to it, but it's not raisiny, not sweet per se. The port is noticeable, but I would even say it's like a bitter sort of sherried, a dry sherried finish, sort of that style. So I think the port pipes that are used in the 14-year-olds are definitely not as high quality. Maybe even larger port pipes, if it's possible to have even larger ones than what they were using. Maybe putting in larger casks. The cask influence is less, and they have to put it in there for a longer period of time. But no one really knows except the folks at Glenmorangie. But I'm happy to taste these two and give you my thoughts on these. So I have a rating for you for the 12-year-old Quinta Ruban. I score it a 7.5 because I think it's a solid Scotch. It's very tasty. It has a lot of complexity for a 12-year-old, and it's just a delightful. It reminds me of what it used to taste like, 15, 20 years ago when I first encountered this particular spirit. The value is, I give it a 7.5, which is out of a scale of 1 to 10. I think it's quite a good value. It's much more than average value for $46, $50 for a port finished 12-year-old. Unfortunately, it's no longer being made. So if you can find it, go grab yourself a bottle. Now for the Quinta Ruban, 14 years, I rated a 6.5. It's definitely better than the standard Glenmorangie, but it's not significantly better. It is an interesting spirit. It's smooth. It has some character, but it seems younger than the 14 years of the age. It seems more like a 10, 12-year-old. I might say if it's a portwood finish, I wouldn't blink an eye. I would say that was a 10 or 12-year-old, but 14. I think it's a little surprising. And then I rate a value of 5 because it's going for in Chicago for about $60 at your local big the big warehouse stores. There can be even more at some of the smaller stores. But I would say it's a 5 because it is a 14-year-old, even though it tastes like it should be a little bit younger. But at $60, it's just, I would just say, average price. So those are my ratings for the Glenmorangie Quinta Ruban. 7.5 and 7.5 for the 12, 6.5 and 5 for the 14-year-old. So I hope you enjoyed our whiskey tasting today. And if you like what we do, please follow us on In the Realm of Whiskeys on YouTube and on Facebook as well. We will be doing live events in Chicago with live whiskey tastings and very soon, probably in May and June of 2021, as we've done two of them previously to celebrate St. Patrick's Day and also explore American bourbons. We're going to be exploring different regions of Scotland. We're going to go through all the islands, all the regions of Scotland in one tasting, as well as different ryes. We're going to do international whiskeys that include Japanese, Mexican, Indian single malts, and French single malts. So we're excited to be creating some unique experiences in Chicago. If you're here, please look us up. You can see more of what we do at www.intherealmofsenses.com. And we hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.